Okay, so we're going to continue our factoring unit, but before we do, we need to talk about perfect squares. So in our little mini lesson today, here's our learning target. So what is a perfect square and how do I find the square root? Okay, a perfect square, sometimes the multiplication chart, which you'll see on the next slide, you have, and you should download it if you haven't already into your Notability, so you've got it, that helps. But a perfect square is a monomial. Remember, a monomial is just a number or numbers and variables together whose square root is nice. And when we say nice, that means no fractions, no decimals. We just get a whole number. Okay, so an example of a perfect square is 16. The reason for that is because 4 times 4, or 4 squared, gives me 16. But another way that's kind of in this definition is that means the square root of 16 then is 4. Okay, so this is a nice number, and that kind of tells us then that this is a perfect square. Okay, now another thing that you might see occasionally would be something like, what about if it's got a variable raised to a power? Well, remember we said if you're multiplying two things with the same base, we can add the exponents. So this really is broken apart into x to the third times x to the third is the same as x to the sixth. Notice these two things are the same. So if you can break it apart and those are the same, then yes, it's a perfect square. So yes, this is a perfect square. So as you might guess, the square root of x to the sixth is x to the third. Okay, notice we really are just cutting that in half. That's how that exponent's in half. Okay, so that's really how you determine if it's a perfect square or not. Okay, again, the multiplication chart. This is the multiplication chart that you have or can download. So are these perfect squares? Well, on this chart, you'll notice the ones that are highlighted here on the diagonal, these right here, these are perfect squares. So that's kind of a nice way to look at it. So here's 25, right? 5 times 5, right? Those two numbers are the same. So the square root of 25 then is 5, okay? So you can use this chart. Is 9 a perfect square? Well, you can see 9 is, whoops, right here. Okay, so yes, 9 is so this would be yes. Is 20 a perfect square? People are tempted just because 10 plus 10. Now be careful, we're not doing addition, right? This is multiplication. So people are tempted to say, oh yeah, 10 plus 10. Well, it's not addition. So no, and notice it's not in those highlighted ones. 16 and 25, that's not 20. So this is no. What about 144? Well, you'll notice 144 is right here, and that's 12 times 12. Okay, if you look up here and over here, you can see that. So, yeah, this is a perfect square. Okay. All right, how about x squared? Well, yeah, because x times x gives me x squared, so this would be yes. Okay. How about x to the 8th? Well, let's see. Yeah, x to the 4th, right? So yeah, so this is a shortcut is with the powers is to just look at the exponents. If it's even, it's a yes. If it's odd, no. Okay, so this is a no. Okay, so then what if you have numbers and variables put together? Then what do we do? Well, 16, you have to identify if both parts are perfect squares then. So if either part isn't, then it's a no. So let's see, is that a perfect square? Yes, it's 4, right? Square root of 16 is 4. All right, is x to the 14th a perfect square? Well, the exponent is even, so yeah, we're good. So yes, this would be a perfect square. So now that you know how to identify perfect squares, really what you're going to have to do on your assignment is then take the square root if they are. Okay, if they're not a perfect square, you're just going to write no. And again, I would use this chart here to help you out. Okay. All right. Determine whether the following are perfect squares. If so, find the square root. If not, write no. So first of all, number 1, 64. Is that a perfect square? Well, you can go up here. You'll notice 64. Sure enough, yes it is. And that's square root of 64 is 8. So, okay. Oops. Is 8. So yes, this is, and I need to say what is the square root then. I'm going to write 8. Okay, how about 36? Yes, because 6 times 6, so the square root of 36 is 6. How about 45? Well, you could go up to your chart, 45. I see 36 here, and I see 49, but not 45, right? So it's not a perfect square. So then I can't take the square root. I mean, I can, but it's not going to be a nice number, so we're going to write it's not a perfect square, so no. All right, and remember, when you see variables with exponents, you're just going to say, is that a perfect square? Well, if the exponent is even, the answer is yes. So this is yes. Now, what's the square root? Well, because when you multiply, you add exponents, you're really just going to cut this in half. So this would be x to the 6th times x to the 6th. So the square root of x to the 12th would be x to the 6th. So, okay, how about y to the 8th? Yup, even. So this would be, the square root then would be y to the 4th. Okay, for x to the 6th, both parts, remember, this part and this part have to be perfect squares. So yes, well, the square root of 4 is 2. X to the 6th, yes, because it's even, so the square root of that is x to the 3rd. So the square root of 4x to the 6th would be 2x to the 3rd. All right. A couple more here, just make sure you got it. 9, yep, that's a perfect square. Y to the 7th, no, because the exponent is odd. So that won't work, so I'm going to say both of those parts have to be perfect square roots to work. So no. All right, number 8, 49, yes. P to the 10th, yep, that's even. So square root of 49 is 7. Square root of p to the 10th is p to the 5th. So the square root of this would be 7p to the 5th. Okay. Well, sometimes you see multiple variables. So then again, all parts have to be perfect square roots. In this case, yeah, it looks like 25 is, and both the exponents are even. So this would be 5y squared z to the 8th. Okay. Kind of a bigger one, but. All right, number 10, last one. 8x to the 6th. Well, 8 is not a perfect square. So this is, but if either part isn't, then it's a no. So this is no. And that's really all there is to it, okay? Your assignment should go pretty fast if this makes sense. It is Perfect Squares worksheet. Write it into your plan book and check it off once you've finished. All right, good luck.